Welcome back. I hope you've had a wonderful lunch, and it's great to see so many familiar faces over here as we continue with our NDTV Defense Summit. It is our inaugural summit, and I think it's been, Puneet, a good experience to actually bring in voices from across industry. But let me tell you a little bit about Puneet and the company that he's really made, Samtel. Samtel is a company that started making picture tubes for displays, for television. They now build touchscreen displays built to the most exacting specifications for India's light combat helicopter, for India's advanced light helicopter, for the Tejas fighter, for the Sukhoi 30, among just a handful of platforms. The words glass cockpit are now synonymous with contemporary aircraft in both the civilian and in the defense sector. Samtel is an Indian champion manufacturer in the state-of-the-art in this very specialized field, and we are delighted to be partnering with them for this session. Thanks very much, Puneet Kaura, for being with us. Before we talk about the specific technology, I've always been amazed at the story of Samtel, because you're doing touchscreen displays now, but you started with components for televisions, right?
Yes. So
how did it start?
Samtel is now, we actually complete our 50 years as we speak, and this company was started 50 years ago by our founder, who's here actually, Mr. Satish Kaura, my father, and it was his journey from believing in developing technology and coming back from the US and starting this company. So you're absolutely right. We started off with picture tubes. Picture tubes were all imported at that time, and we ultimately not only developed the know-how but know-why of developing picture tubes. And then we continued our journey to become, of course, world's largest manufacturers. And as that technology kind of had its natural death and flat panels came in, we moved into aerospace and defense. And actually our journey in aerospace and defense is also real buzzword of Atmanirbhar started. It was actually during the time of Prime Minister Vajpayee when they opened the doors for private sector, 2003, 2004. And that's the time we kind of looked at what we can do in this space. And we tied up with DRDO, developed the first kind of indigenous cockpit display for the Su-30, and we have supplied about 1,500 to 2,000 of those already. And we are also manufacturing, of course, so many different types of high-tech products for global majors across the world. And as we speak, we are developing technologies for the world. So one thing that remains at the heart of Samtel right from the inception is developing technology from basic specifications. And we have done that right from the beginning. So we are not doing any transfer of technology or build to print really. We actually develop our own products for the global market with our technology. Average age at Samtel is below 30. We are, one of the fastest growing defense avionics company in India. And, we are very proud about what we are doing with the Indian Air Force and Indian Armed Forces.
Average age at Samtel was what?
Below 30.
I would fit right in. But I think it's absolutely fascinating what you're doing now as far as touchscreen technologies are concerned. Could you tell us, about the state-of-the-art that you're now looking at, including in new variants of the Tejas fighter, presumably with the AMCA platform as well, and how you are able to develop solutions based on very specific requirements?
So, we have a slightly different kind of look, different way of looking at how we develop things. We first look at what is available in the world at the best, and the best technologies available in the world. And actually, we've been fortunate right from the beginning to work with some of the best global companies right from the start. While we were developing technologies with DRDO for HAL and their platforms, and we formed ultimately a JV with HAL, we also were continuously developing technologies for global majors. And we've actually, believe it or not, we are flying on about, our equipments are flying on about 2,000 or so civilian commercial jets. We have worked with companies like Honeywell in the past, where we have developed technologies for their global supply chain. Talking about specifically about touchscreen, we have recently developed an armored vehicle display, which will be actually for US customer and US Army. And that product is a state-of-the-art product. We are actually very proud that we have developed a product for US Army before we have developed something for Indian Army. And that is all touch screen and high tech and a lot of AI and software in that. So, this is how we look at developing technologies, working with the best and looking at the best technologies globally.
And you're primarily based in Greater Noida, right?
Yes, we are.
There's a reason I'm asking that. Because a lot of people, maybe not so much over here, but certainly within our audience, wouldn't know, and this is nothing but a fact, that a company in Greater Noida manufactures state-of-the-art when it comes to cockpit displays, display systems, touchscreen now, wonderful avionics, built to exacting specifications in Greater Noida. This is technology which already exists in the country. What are your next steps in this technological evolution, as it were?
So, Vishnu, if you look at the product that we make, it is basically a very high technology box. Now, if you look at avionics, basically, if you look at even complex systems like electronic warfare, which Indian government wants to indigenize and bring private sector into it, are all very, very high technology boxes with lot of software, AI embedded into that. And that kind of capability, we want to now explore to go into new domains like electronic warfare. There are certain sensors that we are looking at. These are technologies which are basically requiring indigenization and Atmanirbharta, as you mentioned. We are also looking at different kind of products. We are also kind of looking at technologies that go onto the naval ships. We are looking at some of the aircrafts which are used by Army, for example, helicopters. We'll be actually supplying majority of the displays that will go on the LCH and ALH in the future are developed and would be manufactured by us. So we are looking at kind of diversifying technologies into kind of more high-tech areas, using a lot of AI software embedded into that. And I think there's a lot of potential for doing that, and there's a lot of vacuum, I feel, because as you know, we are a very big, if you not forget about defense, if you look at electronics per se, we are a net importer. And if you look at the value of imports we do for electronics, we're talking about semiconductors, all of the news that you hear is all that push to kind of indigenize electronic capability in the country. And I think we are playing a very pivotal role in high-tech electronics and defense. We've also ventured into, by the way, into railway electronics.
Yeah.
That's another space we are looking into.
Your platforms naturally have to be ruggedized. In the case of military aircraft, if you're on a platform which is pushing 8, 9 Gs when required, you have to build to a certain specification, which must be very difficult. Could you tell us about how quality maintenance, quality is, and maintaining that standard is one of your biggest challenges?
So, we operate in an industry where there is basically zero defects. There is no, you can't afford quality failures at all. And this is at the core of our kind of thrust when we look at what SAMTEL is all about over the last 50 years. And one thing I want to mention here, I was listening to the panel for global companies, and it's something that I would encourage more Indian companies to do. When you work with some of these global companies, I must say, the best practices that come into the company, and it's happened with us, and it happened to us right at the very early stages of our kind of evolution, are unparalleled. And those best practices involve things like looking at zero defect, skill development, systems and processes in the company which will be catering to the world, supply chains. So that has helped us a lot, and we kind of benchmark against the best in the world, and we continuously evolve while we look at technologies in the future.
Imbibing technology is what has actually taken you to where you are right now. You've had JVs with Thales, I believe, among others. You also entered into an agreement now with Hanwha. So tell us about how technology induction from foreign sources was one thing, but you built on that technological base and now offer solutions which many of the original companies don't.
So basically, it all comes back to when you are developing technology, and then I was asked this question, you need to have, it is a very difficult journey, first of all. But at the same time, you need to have conviction. And there were times in our journey when we were lost. When you are developing something and you are developing it without any help for an OEM per se, and you are actually developing and innovating, you are by yourself, and as we heard Raksha Mantri mention, you go on a path which nobody goes on, but it's similar to that. So we chose a path where most of the people don't go on. And when we chose that path, initially we thought maybe it's a very difficult path because nobody is going on that path. And I could so relate to what he said in the morning. And that's our journey. And honestly speaking, when you go on that leap of faith and you develop, and he mentioned about not imitating, but actually developing and innovating and not just copying what West is doing. We are actually doing products which are absolutely to the global standards and beyond. So actually, the product we have made for, one of the US companies is plus to the incumbent that is a US supplier. So it's actually better than their product. And we have developed it over just 3 years, and it's a state of the art. So I think it's just a journey of faith, Vishnu. I think there is no shortcuts, and you need to keep on working at it. And once you feel that you are lost, you need to go back to your principles and your kind of ethos of why you went on to that journey, and you carried on that path. And once you taste success, as you say, success has many fathers, and
Absolutely.
or failure is an orphan.
Who are the people who are your product developers?
Sorry, repeat that.
Who are the people who are your product developers?
So-
Are they engineers coming out of regional engineering colleges? Are they IIT grads? Who are they?
So, it's very good question. We are actually, in the beginning, we started with a lot of mentors. So we had mentors from DRDO, Air Force, people who were guiding us basically on explaining the technology, on the usage of the technology. The basic technology development happened within the company. Of course, we had all these young, bright engineers from premier engineering colleges in the country. Majority of them are, as I said, very young, dynamic. The team is very vibrant, and these are basically, as you said, graduates from engineering colleges with different backgrounds, electronics, software, mechanical, and they combined their synergy into developing these world-class products. And I think they're doing a phenomenal job, and that's our team.
A final question. The semiconductor boom, which is, hopefully will explode in India, because we're looking at resilient supply chains that came up in the discussions this morning. If we do have semiconductor fabs in India, manufacturing over here as well, how would that assist you? Because semiconductors are in short supply.
So, as there is a global supply issue with semiconductors, it's getting resolved, but it became very severe post-COVID. And as obvious, we have global suppliers giving us some of those, critical components when we develop these products I mentioned. Of course, once these labs or these fabs are available, which would be probably another few years from now, these components coming from a local company in India would obviously help in Atmanirbharta again. So when you look at the supply chain, and in electronics, this is the heart of it. The semiconductor fabs would help in kind of going deeper into making the capability of Atmanirbharta more like deep and more kind of resilient. And I think it's a very good step and very necessary step, as we all know. And I think it would definitely help in the kind of products we are developing and capabilities while going into the supply chain and going to tier 2, tier 3 kind of, development of capabilities inside our country, on our motherland.
In the intensely competitive international space, when you offer a product to any country and they read the name Samtel, it could be a product built anywhere. But when they find out that it's an Indian-built company, is there a sense of suspicion or a question saying, why is Samtel better than one of the foreign variants or options which have been there for decades? Why should I pick an Indian company? Do I know enough of them? Are they reliable?
So
is that a problem that you face?
Yes.
Mindsets?
When I look at, say, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when we were kind of new in developing products for the global majors, we absolutely faced that. I remember very well our first product, we were competing with some Japanese suppliers, and our potential customer called up one of our existing partner to kind of validate, is that company for real? What they're talking about, is it for real? So absolutely there was, mistrust in India. Can they do such a high technology kind of development? But as we have rolled on over the years and our name has spread globally, I think that kind of got answered by itself over the period. And now people know that, Samtel develops products for the global majors. They are supplying to the best companies of the world. And I think we are not looked at from an Indian company perspective, but a company which makes global products for global customers at the global quality standards. So I think that...
Sure, and what are some of the countries and what are some of the products that you are exporting?
So we have worked with, as you mentioned, Thales. We have worked with the Mirage 2000 with Thales on the displays and the cockpit upgrade that happened. We have, of course, supplying products to Honeywell for supply chain of the civilian jets. We have also working on more products with global majors, also on the civilian jet side. Then I mentioned we are looking at armored vehicle space. That's another big domain for us growth-wise. Of course, railway electronics actually is another space which has a lot of global demand for exports. Customers like Alstom and big companies over there. So basically, you are talking about the marquee companies, all the A category companies, and they are dealing with, obviously our competition is also as competitive as it can get. So these are companies in US, companies in Europe, companies in Southeast Asia. We have also started supplying to Malaysian Air Force actually. The Sukhois are using our displays over there. So they came to us when they got to know. So that's another customer of ours. So the list goes on and it's evolving more and more. We're talking to more companies. We're working with a big German company now for giving some technologies in India for a big program coming up. So I think as we speak, this word is spreading and we are partnering with more companies on a regular basis.
That's not a mean achievement. A Russian jet manufactured in Russia, sold to Malaysia with Indian avionics and Indian displays. That really tells you a story of how this company is actually going, and it's one of their frontline products. It's been wonderful speaking to you, learning a little bit about so much. But there is one more question that comes to mind before we leave. Components, and you don't produce all of them. You also support industry in India, and you have to ensure that you get the very highest quality from smaller manufacturers. Is that a challenge?
So,
and what are these components typically?
There are two things that go into that. One is you have to nurture your own suppliers, and we have done it, and our suppliers are actually themselves quite independently supplying to our customers, by the way. That means they have developed to the level that they are not our competition, but for certain capabilities that they developed while working with us, they are good enough now for global standards. So it's another journey which took a lot of patience, a lot of continuous work with our suppliers. I think another very important point that we kind of emphasize, and it's not emphasized enough sometimes I feel, is the skill development. And I remember A. Marshal Baduria talking about it in the morning. Skill development is at the heart of not only companies like us, but also the ecosystem of our suppliers. And we are embarked on that journey as a country, but there's a huge gap. And as we develop skills, this kind of would get answered not only from our ecosystem of suppliers, but capabilities in the domain, and of course looking at the world. And I have no doubt that Indian companies can actually be on the global map, working with global majors and actually producing products better than they have been getting from the global companies wherever they are in the world.
Puneet, it's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing the story of Samtel, and thank you so much for partnering with us in our inaugural NDTV Defense Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all of you for being with us. We've got one of the big highlights with the Army Chief now amidst us. Our armed forces, many would say, are our first line and last line of defense. India exists in a neighborhood facing unprecedented geopolitical uncertainty. The challenges are profound, from defending our frontiers to dealing with the threat of terrorism. For the armed forces, the effective defense of India is based on the support that the forces receive from industry. The Army is the biggest champion of Atmanirbharta in defense as a solution to meeting our expansive needs. But with that confidence in the policy of Atmanirbharta comes the hope that self-reliance and Atmanirbharta will deliver to the highest standards in the quality of manufacture, in the speed of manufacture, and in the need to meet the highest technical requirements that the Army sets out. There can be no mistakes. In a few moments, we'll be joined on the stage by the Chief of the Army Staff, General Manoj Pande, to talk on self-reliance and technology transformation in the Indian Army. But before that, this very special message from the Army.
भारतीय सेना सबल, साहसी, शूरवीर। ये सर्वविजेता योद्धा दल वर्तमान और भविष्य की चुनौतियों के लिए परिवर्तित हो रही है, एक अजय और आधुनिक सेना के रूप में। और है जीत के लिए सदा तैयार, पराक्रम और परिवर्तन के दम पर। परिवर्तन के पथ पर अग्रसर भारतीय सेना ने तकनीकी निपुणता को अपना अभिन्न अंग बनाया है। समग्र शक्ति लगा सेना ने यह ठाना है, तकनीकी उत्कृष्टता से ही होगी भारत की जय, सर्वदा निश्चित। यह है टेक्नोलॉजी एब्जॉर्प्शन का वर्ष।
We are delighted to welcome onto the stage for his keynote address the Chief of the Army Staff, General Manoj Pande. Sir, honored by your presence. Thanks very much, sir.
Government functionaries present here, industry leaders, members from the academia and various think tanks, representatives from the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and Jai Hind to everybody. I shall share my thoughts on the self-reliance and technology transformation in the Indian Army. And before I spell out the various transformation initiatives, some of which you just saw in the AV, let me briefly touch upon the emerging threats and challenges that we face in the security canvas. The geopolitical landscape today is characterized by unprecedented changes taking place at a fast speed and scale. The centrality of national interest and the growing salience of national security in the international system is distinctly visible. Today, nations have shown willingness to resort to the use of hard power to secure their interests. A situation of return to conflict to achieve political and military objectives is a clear possibility. While conventional war has undergone rapid technological progression, disruptive technologies are transforming the character of modern wars and blunting the conventional combat ratios, which was the measure of military's strength and superiority in the past. Warfare has also transcended into new domains such as cyber, electromagnetic spectrum, information and space. Today, emerging technologies are no longer superpower-centric. Non-state actors are increasingly gaining access to modern technologies of military use and employing it for a leverage asymmetric at that in conflict. The fallout is an increased propensity in risk-taking behavior and low threshold for initiation of armed conflicts. Amidst all of above, our legacy challenges of unsettled borders continue. Newer threats in the conflict spectrum have added to the complexity. Grey zone actions and aggressions by our adversaries is manifesting across multiple domains, including the military, that is, on the land, air, and the maritime space. Proxy war is one such manifestation of this threat that we have been combating for years now. Consequent to all these developments, the battle space is become more complex, contested, and lethal, and shall remain so in the future. Amidst this complicated canvas that I just described, our nation continues to rise. As a nation, we have envisioned and taken up the resolve to emerge as a developed nation when we celebrate our centenary milestone. The aspirations of a rising India shall span across expanding strategic horizons. The foremost implication for us, therefore, is to ensure that the nation's security is not impacted in any way so that its progress continues unabated. Therefore, to secure our national interests, we need to possess commensurate capabilities, which requires a continuous progression and focused approach from where we are today. In keeping with all that I have just said, the Indian Army's vision that we have articulated for ourselves is to transform into a modern, agile, adaptive, technology-enabled, future-ready force capable to deter and win wars in a multi-domain operational environment across the full spectrum of conflict to protect our national interests in synergy with the other services. So how do we go about preparing ourselves to be future-ready? The impact of external dependency for critical components, supply chain disruptions, and weaponization of denial regimes came to the fore, and we saw it during the pandemic, as also from the lessons of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Talking of critical and advanced technologies and their military application, we need to recognize that even if we were to import some warfighting systems, no country will share the latest technology with us. Being import dependent for critical technologies, hence, entails the risk of remaining one technological cycle behind in niche areas. For our nation to pursue its aspirations, the need to be self-reliant, both in acquiring new weapon platforms and equipment, as also sustenance of existing ones by meeting ammunition, spare and maintenance demands, and achieving self-sufficiency in critical technologies through indigenous R&D is hence an imperative. Sometimes we tend to focus on acquisition of new equipment, but just as I was describing to somebody as we walked in, I feel it is the entire, whatever wherewithal you require to fight, that is what we need to be able to produce indigenously, which includes the ammunition and the rest of it. Indian industries today are the vanguards of innovation and technological progression. Core technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum, augmented and virtual reality, cyber, biotechnology, energy and space are available in the private commercial domain. It is essential to harness these technologies and catalyze their conversions for defense needs. The country also has a vibrant, capable and productive technology ecosystem comprising institutions of academic excellence and repute, startups, innovation centers, information technology companies, and manufacturing hubs. Our technological prowess has been a driver of global technological pursuits. These factors lend feasibility for the defense sector to identify, absorb, and adopt technologies accruing through indigenous competencies and capabilities. The government has taken many initiatives to promote an effective defense industry ecosystem in the country. The enabling actions include simplification of industrial licensing, deregulation, inclusive participation of the private sector, foreign investment liberalization, incentivization for transfer of technology, promulgation of positive indigenization lists, a dedicated R&D budget for domestic capital procurement, corporatization of the ordnance factories, and establishment of defense corridors. Provisions have also been made towards creating capacities for developing critical technologies through foreign investments and partners, through joint ventures, co-production and co-development route, having a joint IPR model and transfer of technology procedures. In all of this, the services have been a facilitator for policy execution of the Atmanirbhar vision by providing a viable market for indigenous defense manufacturers. We have been proactively reaching out to the industry with problem statements, solutions to which we seek from them. The process of communicating our future defense requirements guides the industry in planning and initiating technology development, partnerships, and production arrangements. A number of initiatives have been taken by the Indian Army to handhold the industry towards building the required trust and momentum. Organizing forward area visits for industry representatives to better understand field conditions and user requirements, support in conduct of trials, assistance in testing and certification, provisioning or providing in-service equipment for R&D, facilitating no objection certificates for export, and promoting indigenous defense products in various exercises, interactions that we have with militaries of friendly foreign countries through military diplomacy are some of such initiatives. I believe the Indian defense industry is rising up to the mandate of achieving self-reliance and is investing significantly into research processes and advanced manufacturing and production techniques, and is today producing cutting-edge military hardware with modern technologies. Currently, we have close to 340 indigenous defense industries that are working towards fructification of about 225 contracts by the year 2025, with an outlay of approximately 2.5 lakh crores. Modernization and technology infusion, which stands on the edifice of Atmanirbhar, forms one of the key pillars of our transformation roadmap that we are undertaking in the Indian Army. Let me highlight some of the focus areas for technology infusion and key systems that are being indigenously sourced. Towards improving our mobility and protection, various procurements include light strike vehicles, all-terrain vehicles or the ATVs, light specialist vehicles, and bulletproof jackets of the highest quality which provide the maximum protection. Battlefield situational awareness is being increased or enhanced through border surveillance system and having a range of surveillance drones. For target acquisition and precision fires, we have swarm drones, loiter munitions, and new artillery platforms such as the 155mm mounted gun systems, towed gun systems, the K9 Vajra, the advanced towed artillery gun systems, and new generation of munition which include terminally guided munitions and canister launch munition as well. Our night fighting capabilities are being enhanced through night sights for small arms and handheld thermal imagers. The effectiveness of our communication right down to the soldier level is being upgraded through induction of software-defined radios. We are also deploying terrain-specific electronic warfare systems, drone and anti-drone systems. Logistic capacities and efficiencies are being augmented by employing or introduction of logistic drones. Induction of new weapon platforms for the mechanized forces such as the light tanks and the future infantry combat vehicle, and for aviation such as the medium altitude long endurance RPAs and the light utility helicopter are also in the pipeline. Apart from the weapon systems and equipment, we are also pursuing 45 niche technologies which have been identified for military application. 120 indigenous projects are currently underway to develop and absorb these niche technologies. Now, these span across multiple routes of innovation, incubation, and development. Centers of excellence have been established in our technical institutions, and these include the 5G testbed lab, the AI lab, and the quantum lab, which we have set up at MAU in collaboration with IIT Madras. A number of artificial intelligence projects are currently underway, and this comprises the natural language processing, facial recognition, vehicle tracking, satellite imagery analysis, and other autonomous systems. A tri-services project is being undertaken to develop a high-powered computing AI cloud. We are in the process of preparing an AI roadmap in consultation with subject matter experts, which will serve us good for the next 20 to 25 years. We are also exploring the Internet of Military Things and its integration with 5G communication for exploitation in the domains of smart surveillance, telemedicine, drone control, and real-time augmented and virtual reality for both training as well as operations. Under robotics, we are pursuing projects like robotic surveillance platform, autonomous combat vehicle, and man-unmanned teaming solutions. In the space domain, we are exploiting indigenous space assets with the Indian Army as one of the largest users of satellite communication-based networks. We are also working closely with government ministries and other departments to harness Digital India and other similar initiatives. Our collaboration with MITI encompasses exchange of best practices in hardware and data security, assistance during procurement for identified embedded malware, capability building in cyber forensics, audit of our Indian Army data centers, and standardization testing and quality certification. We are also reaching out to academic centers of excellence and IITs for incubation and fostering innovations for customized training, accreditation, and establishing patents of defense research products. However, infusion of technology and advanced weapon systems and equipment by itself is not enough. Enhancing the technology threshold of our soldiers, adopting new operational philosophies, concepts of employment, and tactics are as important to maximize the battlefield potential of modern weapon system. Forced restructuring and reorganization of units or our subunits to give effect to these new capabilities is also being currently addressed. In our pursuit of modernization and technology infusion, we need to find the right balance between vintage, current, and the state-of-art systems that will form part of our inventory. Modernization or replacement of all vintage platforms in one go is neither feasible nor desirable. We intend to scale up the ratio of vintage to current to the state-of-art equipment, and we intend doing that substantially by 2030 with a focused Atmanirbhar capability development roadmap. New indigenous procurements are being planned in a manner so that no operational gaps or voids exist in our war-fighting capability at any time. Maintaining a high level of operational preparedness to effectively address and meet current security challenges along our borders will continue to remain our focus and priority. I would like to underscore the point that Swadeshi Karan, say Sashakti Karan, is a work in progress, where all stakeholders, be it the services, industry partners, startups, R&D institutions, academia, and the policymakers have a crucial and equal role to play. It is essential for us to develop core competencies in critical technologies and production of key systems with a clear focus, scale, and speed necessary to meet not only our immediate defense requirements but also for export of military hardware in the future. The Indian Army remains aligned and integrated with the national vision and objectives, and a self-reliant and future-ready Indian Army shall continue to contribute meaningfully to the aspirations, goals, and objectives of a rising India. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and Jai Hind.
Over the last 2 years is that warfare is never stagnant, but the evolution of warfare and the pace of induction of new technologies during the Ukraine-Russia war and by Houthi rebels operating from a part of Yemen are a wake-up call to military forces around the world. Drone warfare isn't a scene out of the Terminator movies. Drones have already begun to redefine the modern battlefield. Conventional weapon systems also need to evolve to meet new challenges and to achieve new technical requirements to defeat the enemy. We have a wonderful panel today, real thinkers about what the future of warfare is going to be. Among them, Sameer Joshi. He's an innovator in the Indian drone space in the country. Atul Dinkar, the Director General of the Defense Research and Development Organization. He's also the CEO and MD of BrahMos, the company which builds arguably the finest anti-ship cruise missile in the world. We're also joined by Lieutenant General Sunil Srivastava, the former Director at the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, and General Amit Sharma, the former Commander-in-Chief of India's Nuclear Command. Wonderful having all of you. Sameer, let me come to you first. The last 2 years and warfare seems to have been completely altered by what we are seeing on the Russia-Ukraine front. How is drone warfare here to stay?
So, Vishnu, of course, everybody have been part of this roller coaster ride, which is being seen in the Russo-Ukraine conflict in the last 2 years. There has been a very, very significant spike in the way robotic platforms are being used. In fact, this is the war where all three facets of drone warfare, aerial, terrestrial, as well as surface, are very, very visible. It is clearly indicating to the future and the doctrinal shift, what is happening across the world, that robots are here to play. In the next 5 to 10 years, robotic platforms will definitely be 10 to 15% of all organization levels across the world in all major armed forces. And it is very, very essential to have robotic layers between your manned elements and the enemy's objectives. So this is largely being driven by two aspects, and which is also coming up very openly in the Ukraine war. First is the commoditization of autonomy. You know, autonomy is a feature which lets you spend a very long amount of time over a battle space. You know, since the human is not involved, there is no human limitation to prohibit a robotic platform to spend a large amount of time, which is termed as persistence over the TBA, the tactical battlefield area. The second facet is the large availability of AI and the threads which are powering them. Artificial intelligence can give shape to very, very creative concept of operations and employment, which the general very rightfully mentioned. This combination of autonomy and AI over and rapid proliferation of these in the last about 8 to 10 years is giving shape to new class of robotic behavior, grades of robotic platforms, uncrewed platforms, and these are so the right place to see them, of course, is go through all the videos of the Ukraine war, which are being bombarded on us on a daily basis. But at the same time, highlights of this now is being seen in the top grade programs across the world, coming from the most, the best developed companies, right down to very, very low scale and cheap platforms being utilized, across the world. Even a meaningful intelligence layer over a very cheap drone makes it very, very powerful. And this is being seen to a great, great effect across the world. And I think here the advent and here a dimensional disruption is taking place all across the world. The next, disruption in warfare, which is very, very visible, is happening right in front of eyes. And any organization across the world not taking notice of this and sticking to the legacy behavior will tend or will definitely suffer in the days ahead. Simply because the OODA loop closure by robotic behavior is far faster than anything which a man can deploy. And this definitely, ladies and gentlemen, is the future of warfare in the years ahead.
General Srivastava, one of the concerns is that legacy systems are expensive when it comes to taking on small drones in the battlefield. Of course, drones come in all sizes and shapes and costs. but FPV drones, first-person view drones, which have been employed on the Ukraine-Russia battlefront against tanks, against infantry formations, cost barely a few $100 in some cases, or just a few $1,000 in other cases. But to actually intercept such platforms mean spending surface-to-air missiles in cases which can cost nearly $1 million for small surface-to-air missiles, shoulder-launched. There's a huge disparity over here. How does one effectively counter drones on the battlefield?
Yeah, thank you, Vishnu. Thank you for that question, and thank you for inviting me to be on this panel.
Sir.
Yeah. So before I answer your question as to how do we counter drones, I'll agree with Sameer on everything that he has said, but I would like to add another nuanced experience that everybody is seeing happening, unfolding in Ukraine, and that is the ecosystem which both the sides have built towards exploitation of drones. A cottage industry, volunteers, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, being flown by soldiers, by hobbyists, and the like. And this is producing drones without being trial evaluated, producing a variety of drones working on variety of frequencies to which their own counter-jamming systems may not be aware, and yet suffering an attrition of about 80-90% and more. Coming now to the attrition part, I'll explain that.
Yes.
But yet carrying on with the use of drones. Because as some senior Ukrainian general said, that sometimes it works for me better than artillery. They've got less shells available. So drones are letting them stay in the fight. That's the importance.
Yeah.
Okay, about countering drones.
Yeah.
So therefore, as I said, a very high attrition rate on both sides explains that everything that is being done over there, and it's being done as they fight. No proven systems were there with either side, and yet they are doing countering a drone, throwing nets around them. Laser systems have not been used as yet, though it surprises me because Russia was supposed to be pretty way ahead as far as laser systems are concerned. But the most effective way of downing drones as of now in this war appears to be electronic warfare. And to my mind, I mean, the density of electronic warfare systems, that's another lesson. Every 10 kilometers frontage, you have an electronic warfare system deployed. Many armies may not be kind of very confident of using electronic warfare systems in this manner. It requires a whole lot of coordination. Which other frequencies might be affected? So therefore, it's learning as they are going. But to my mind, the best way of downing them besides electronic warfare would be laser systems, the iron beam that the Israelis have got. I'm told that the Israelis have started using it. Iron beam would be an effective way of doing it.
Power generation, of course, and the source of power is a concern in the battlefield.
True.
But before I go across to my other panelists, let me go back to Sameer. In the case of the war between Russia and Ukraine, you've got the Ukrainian Navy, which doesn't have a navy, effectively get the entire Russian fleet in the Black Sea back into port. Whenever they come out, you've got suicide drones, target them. And these are targeted, even in the last 48 hours we've seen, one drone clearly operated by an operator hits a particular ship, a second drone tries to get in to that very same area, a third drone does the same, ultimately to sink the warship. As you look at autonomous systems going forward, because this has got a man in the loop, what is the future of naval warfare?
So Vishnu, Ukrainians have gone back to the first principle. The first principle being generation of combat mass over a certain area. Now this can be through robotic platforms or through human on-the-loop platforms which are controlling those robotic assets, or primarily through pure algorithm-based autonomous agents. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everything what you see happening in Ukraine will gradually bias from human on the loop to human in the loop. There are rampant developments happening across the world where algorithm is starting to take more and more prominence, and it is going to be getting into the field of cooperative robotics. We already have swarm drones with the Indian Army, which are deployed right at the operational scenarios. Similar effort of decentralized swarming, not something what you see in the light shows, they are formation flying. Decentralized swarming is what is going to be very visible. Ukrainians generating that combat mass with a large number of these unmanned surface vehicles. So their strategy is very simple. You generate this mass at the vital points, the choke points. Russians have to get out, and to be very frank, Russians have been found to be an edge, behind at this stage, more reactive to what the Ukrainians are throwing at them. And the Ukrainians on their side are just having that right number of boats to start initiating those attacks. And just be, when we take a look at this, and as late as what we saw yesterday in the attack on the Russian ship, there were 10 unmanned surface vehicles. Now, all these are attacking in their own sense, in a very, very decentralized manner. Of course, each one of them has a human operator as of now. But the degree of difficulty is so high because you, by creating that combat mask, are creating a saturation over that limited area. That is what will positively get you through the layers of defenses. And this is how the doctrinal shift, what I was mentioning to in my previous message, is actually going on right at a tactical level, and when you start to deploy it, it expands right to the strategic level. Ukrainians, by creating that combat mass, are adding more and more layers of difficulty for any kind of defense which the Russians can put across. This is a change which is well noticed all across by naval, tacticians. This is a change which is coming up. Everybody is getting into USVs. Surprisingly, it was the Iranians back in the 2000s who came up with this concept. Of course, it was all human powered, but there is more than enough evidence that across the world efforts, and starting right from the US, China, a lot of focus is going on USVs, which are going to be autonomous, decentralized, talking to each other, planning through a tactical aspect to attack a certain target. And again, this is where the naval warfare is definitely going towards.
Yeah. General Sharma, you're a tank man, right? Yeah. You've spent decades fighting on tanks or preparing to fight on tanks. Now, we've gone beyond the arguments on whether a tank is still useful on the war front. It quite clearly is. But the tanks are also extremely defenseless in the face of anti-tank guided missiles of a new generation, of FPV drones which are being used as well, a new generation of landmines. What is the future of tank warfare?
I think this question has been asked so many times at every gathering you go. Look, when some new technology comes in, you feel that a piece of equipment is of no use and it goes out. But it's not like that. You've got to find a counter to it. Now, what is the job of a tank in a battlefield? Let's start from there. A tank is the only piece of equipment that can enable the infantry fighting alongside to move up and capture an objective, and after you've captured it, it provides a staying power to the troops so that they can beat back the enemy. So that is the basic job of a tank. Now you can't say that that job cannot be done and should not be done. So the tank stays, the infantry stays. Why we've seen so many casualties in Ukraine, the Russian casualties at the initial stages and the Ukrainian casualty during the counterattack of tanks, is I think three things: tactics, training, and technology. Technology is what it is. It is the tactics and the training. Please remember that any arm or any piece of equipment has to be employed in an integrated manner. Now, when armor moves, in Indian Army, you call it a combat team at the lowest level, combat group, and a combat command at a brigade level. What it means is you've got the armor moving, along you've got mechanized infantry moving, along with that you've got air support, helicopter support, and now drones. You've got the artillery self-propelled moving behind. You've got the communications, engineers, etc. So you're moving as a combined group. Where the Russians went wrong, I think, you only saw lines of tanks on highways with no logistic support. They had no infantry support. They had no air support, very surprisingly. And they are sitting ducks for even a guy with a handheld weapon. So I think what went wrong was basically training and tactics. And in the Indian Army, we are very particular on our basic trainings. And there is no question of tanks moving on a highway. Tanks are not meant to move on the highway, they move off the road. And the Ukrainians, again, during the counterattack, what happened? The Russians went in for World War II kind of defenses. They had trenches dug out, they had minefields laid on, and they had handheld weapons. The Ukrainians trying to get across the minefield with those mine trolls and things like this, it's chugging way across and they were sitting ducks again. So you've got to change. See, the ground has to be captured, the ground has to be defended. But as technology changes, you've got to change your procedures. I would say that instead of trying to cross a minefield with tank plows and, trolls and all, you should have gone in for fuel air explosives.
Yeah.
You should have gone in for thermobaric weapons to soften the defenses. You see, so weapon systems have to change. What is futuristic tomorrow, that'll be the order of the day. So warfare has to keep changing every time. So I feel you employ your correct tactics, you go and combine battle groups and you're safe. As far as a point about the drones, what we've been mentioning, a lot of good stuff has been said. You see, drones is not something new. Armenia, Azerbaijan, you saw so much of drone warfare. We've had drones or UAVs, as we called it earlier, in strike formations. I commanded a corps about 10 years back and we had a pack of Herons with us. But then they were used only at a very high level. Today, drones have kept in at the soldier level. What you got to see is, one, what do you want to achieve in an operation, whatever that operation be. And then you see as to what is the technology that could be available with your adversary. And three is, how do you counter that? So if you're talking of drone warfare, well, to counter a drone, you've got to work out counter-drone systems. Where there's laser systems, you can't have missiles knocking off drones. It doesn't sound logical. So I guess we're working on it. You go in for laser kind of stuff, plus protection that on top of tanks. A little later, you found that they had those steel-covered railings, etc., as top attack protection, cheap protection. So I guess everything that should be objective-based as to what do you want to achieve, how do you incorporate training into it, and how do you become a winner after that? Yeah.
Mr. Dinkar, as the CEO and MD of BrahMos Aerospace, you deal with a weapon system which has transformed the Indian Navy. Could you tell us a little bit about how the BrahMos over a period of time has evolved and how that growth potential is huge when it comes to our projected requirements?
First of all, thank you, Vishnu, for staying in the syllabus. It's the main thing. But thank you for having me here. We are far away from the drone warfare and tanks particularly. BrahMos, when we started off as an anti-ship missile. That's why everyone says Navy. But as warfare moves, as requirements begin to come in, technology grows, the BrahMos missile has evolved. What has happened is, it's not just that it flies 300 kilometers and hits its target. It needs to fly reliably 300 kilometers and hit its target. It should fly 300 kilometers and hit a ship from a group of ships. You start off with an anti-ship missile against one ship, but then it became a group of ships. From a group of ships, it became, why only one missile at a time? Why not a salvo? So these are the various, the evolution it has gone through. But we didn't stop at being an anti-ship missile. The Indian Navy, or any Navy of the world in the future, has to go close to land. And what we were talking about, the surface drones which were there for the what we saw yesterday, maybe they should have been taken out before they came out of the harbor. That means a ship-launched land attack missile. So the same missile, a universal missile, that is the same cartridge, can hit a ship or the land. This is another evolution we took. We've had many more things after that, but the most recent launch which we had from one of the frontline Indian naval ships has proven not only that we have the latest technologies available, but indigenous too.
And flying at ranges which have never been seen before for this weapon system.
Absolutely.
And you aren't going to tell me the range that it flew to, right?
Ranges are with the armed forces. They have the missile. They use it at what range is possible.
One of the biggest evolution points for the BrahMos was the sensors. It came with Russian sensors. You have now the seekers. You've indigenized them as well. Could you tell us about how challenging that process was?
When we started this whole process of a joint venture with Russia, it's always it's wonderful to hear that people are still having Russia in with them, and we are one of them, and we are very proud of it too. there was a process stock which was available with the Russians, and there was a process stock which was available with this. What I mean by process stock is technologies available with both sides. We married these two technologies together, matching technologies, and created the BrahMos missile. Yes, DRDO, when they started their work journey with BrahMos, and when the BrahMos company was formed, we were just 10% indigenous content in the whole thing. It's been a long journey, 25 years. We have a wonderful supply chain of people giving us components, moving into another manufacturer. I mean, what Puneet was saying is exactly what BrahMos has gone through, but at a little larger level, looking at a little different side. But we are there, and it's a difficult journey, but can be talked about too much also.
Can the BrahMos be defeated?
Till the current geopolitical conflict, that is the Ukraine war, it was, everyone said it is unbeatable. Yes, the geopolitical conflict showed that the BrahMos Zero, the Onyx missile which is there with the Russians, is very, very similar to BrahMos, is what everyone says. It isn't. That's a dinosaur. BrahMos is modern. And from that conflict, we have understood that, yes, today, even today, maybe about 90% of the BrahMoses will hit target, even in a conflict of what is there happening today.
Yeah. And I think the other part of the BrahMos is the rocketry itself. The rocketry enables this very large missile to fly at Mach 2.8 plus to conduct terminal S-shaped maneuvers going up to 12 G. In other words, making it impossible for any known defensive system to reliably intercept it. So it's not just the seeker that we talk about, but it's also the rocketry and the way in which the missile is launched, which is somewhat unusual compared to what other countries have.
Yeah, you see, using a liquid ramjet, the whole world started off on ramjets. They went the solid route. Some people started work on the liquid ramjets, and they left it saying that it's too expensive. And the timeline for development of a liquid ramjet is long. One country held on to it, and that was Russia. They went through it. They developed this mean engine which is there, which now has been shared with us in India. It's a work of art, and I may share it. I hope he's watching. There was an engineer who was looking at this engine at one time, and I asked him, Subhash, what do you say? He says, this is even more beautiful than any Russian woman I've seen. That's how intricate that machinery is.
Yeah.
And it's really something.
No, it truly is. And the missile has also become smaller for use with the Indian Air Force and lighter, which would have been an engineering challenge, a massive one.
We are working on it. We have finished the blueprint stage. We are getting into cutting metal. We're just waiting for collecting a bit of funds, because it requires a lot of funds to go into a new development. But yes, the current BrahMos, what people see, is going to be about 1/2 to 1/3 its size, half of its weight, able to put 2 of the BrahMoses on a single aircraft. Right now, the BrahMos air version is one BrahMos under the belly of the Su-30, the heaviest armament that the Su-30 carries. We should be there doing a flight trial by the end of next year. And BrahMos Aerospace always has a charm. We say we'll do it by such and such date. It's done. So I would say by middle of 2026, we would be able to do induction into the Indian Air Force.
That's absolutely remarkable. And a final question, hypersonics. You already have a very fast missile. Are you working towards that as the next step?
In fact, I was treading down that path in your earlier question. People left the ramjet and started working on other things. The Russians stayed on the liquid ramjet, and they have a hypersonic missile. Now, when we say hypersonics, there are 2 types. There's the cruise vehicle, and there's also the glide vehicle. I'm talking about the hypersonic cruise. The hypersonic cruise today, as a weaponizable item is there with the Russians. Why they have not used it, or maybe it's not yet fully ready, well, that's a question. That means the technology is through this ramjet. May not be this ramjet, but one of the similar ramjets. The Western world has restarted working on liquid ramjets. They've been working on cruise, hypersonic cruise. I will be not telling the truth if I say we are not working on hypersonics.
So you are working on it.
Our partners who are our design partners, that because BrahMos Aerospace is a partnership between two design agencies, the DRDO and NPO Marsh of Russia. They are working on hypersonics. They will crack the puzzle soon. And who else is left to do the production? It's BrahMos Aerospace.
Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. It's been an absolutely fascinating session which looks at some of the emerging threats which exist, some of the responses that we need to consider, but also when we talk about the disruptive patterns in warfare, evolving concerns and threats, and we also need to look at what exists presently in the conventional sense, and BrahMos certainly is that, but it's a weapon system that's quite clearly evolving. From all of us over here, thank you very much. We've got one more fantastic session coming up, but for this session, we are done. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Vedant introduced, this is going to be the concluding session for NDTV's inaugural Defence Summit. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for staying with us. And in this session, we are raising the very moot question, which is coming at the end, but important nonetheless, that how do we build towards a world-class indigenous defence industry? So as we said, in as much as India seeks new partnerships to build on the theme of Atmanirbharta, legacy private organizations have always existed in our country, but have perhaps never been seen to be what they are, world-class. At the same time, a host of new companies offer exciting opportunities to meet India's defense requirements. Joining us to discuss further in this panel is Mr. Neeraj Gupta, Managing Director of MKU Group, which provides body armor to some of the leading forces around the world. Captain Nikunj Parashar, founder of Sagar Defense Engineering, which has also in fact been recognized as, for its innovation, its winner of the Innovation for Defense Excellence. And also, I'm joined by Mr. Ashish Saraf, who is the Vice President and Country Director of India Thales. Of course, Thales has been in India partnering with the defense sector for 7 decades and is a global tech company. So he will also be part of this discussion. So taking the question first to Mr. Neeraj Gupta. Now, MKU is really known for making top-notch body armor and even high-tech helmets. How has Make in India helped to raise the bar and produce high-quality safety gear, not just for Indian forces, but also for the world, in a way?
Thank you. Interesting question. I would first say that MKU has been in the business of producing body armor since 2003. And we brought the technology or started manufacturing composite body armor since 2000, and probably the first company outside of Europe and US to start producing lightweight composite body armor when the India felt the need after Kargil war, when India was using steel plate body armor. So there was a time when India felt the need that India should be having composite body armor. That's the time when we brought the technology into India. So MKU has always been looking at the new ways of getting into the right stuff, empowering our soldiers with new technologies. So we started that and also started exporting in 2003. And today I would say that we have exported to almost like 100 countries, 230 forces have been equipped by our equipments. We have equipped more than 3 million soldiers, 3,000 platforms. So what is all this means? MKU has been producing in India for the world since 2003. Our first customer was Spanish Army way back in 2003. So with the diversity of the customers, right from Japan to all the way to Brazil and to Chile and to all the Western countries, including India, it gives a challenge for us to make new products developing all the time. We invest almost 5% of our revenue in R&D Today we have about 40, 45 engineers working on different materials all the time. So I think that's the whole thing. And going forward, today we have developed various range of electro-optics for soldier systems, now also getting into platform optronics as well.
Right, but how, if you are taking specifics, let's say, of India, how does that cater to the world? If you can elaborate on that further.
So I think very early on we just realized that, yes, India is a growing market, but the requirements are finite. So we started to look at the international market. As I said, our first exports was in 2003 when nobody in India knew even how to export to other countries. So I think that was a conscious call that we took as a company. And one thing that also we take a pride that whether it's armor or electro-optics, all the products that we manufacture in India or UAE or in Germany, all the IP belongs to us so that we are free to export wherever is required. And we have a great team to develop these products.
Right. Coming to you, Captain Parashar, now Sagar engineering, if I can ask that question, naval warfare has forever been changed over the last 2 years. If you just look at the last 2, 3, 4 years of conflicts that we have seen, especially as Vishnu was also referring to in a previous session, that in Ukraine, which is a country without navy, it has sunk numerous frontline Russian warships by the smart usage of drones. Now, is that the future of naval warfare that we are working towards and that India needs to invest in?
First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Biswas and NDTV for hosting me here. Question is absolutely perfect, and this is something the Navy itself and the government at MOD level is working on. Primarily, we were winner of one of the IDEX challenges where we started off, which was on unmanned surface vehicle. Samir in the last panel was also talking about decentralized unmanned surface vehicle swarms. This is exactly what is now being currently built here in India. And when you look at across globally where the conflicts is changing in, you have the anti-drone systems coming in, you have drones as a primary threat to your bigger capital ships and destroyer, which you can see here in the Ukraine war. One after the other kamikaze vessels are going in and getting in right into that spot. This is where our current government and the Navy is already looking at that front. And there are certain niche technologies at classified level we are working in with the Navy. Certain trials have been already completed. And matter of fact, I proudly say that now we are getting into induction phase. So there are massive contracts being signed across in that regard. And in coming 2 years, you'd be seeing countries' first swarm of unmanned surface vehicle being launched here in India and on the coast.
That's right. In fact, recently, I think 12 of them were procured by the Navy, which your company was involved in innovating and making.
That is correct. We are building these right now out of our Pune Chakan facility. These are again swarm of 12 vessels which will be working along the coast in parallel to the capital ships and across, having extended ranges of 400 nautical miles. So this has been, and I would say this is possible. Something, and I'll come back to a speech, a small quote of Honorable Prime Minister, which he did during his maiden 14th, on 2014 on his maiden independence speech. He said that, let's come here, make in India, manufacture in India, because we believe that we have the talent, we have the design capability, and we have a desire and dream to do it. I think since then, as an entrepreneur also, I started thinking, and that led to the formation of Sagar Defense Engineering, quitting a job, coming here in India, and actually started working on. And a technology of this complex nature where you need massive investments, this would have not been possible if the government support would have not been there. So this realization has come through due to massive support of IDEX and the Indian Navy and at the MOD level. And that has led to actual induction of these platforms.
Right. We'll come back to the investment and funding point later in the discussion. But going across to you, Mr. Saraf, now from the Mirage 2000 to the Rafale, how has Thales been a partner in India? If you can just describe your 7-decade journey in the country. And what can we look forward to?
Thank you. So thank you for inviting Thales to this forum. For Thales, we've completed 7 decades in India last year. So it was our 70th anniversary, and the legacy goes like we were instrumental in creation of Bharat Electronics. So that's the legacy and the heritage that we carry in the country in terms of Atmanirbhar. Now, through this, obviously, we were making in India long before Make in India actually became a big narrative. But as far as our footprint and the Make in India is concerned, We are present across 7 cities, but the key here is that we engineer in India, design in India, and manufacture in India. So, we've been doing and graduating from just engineering to design and then making it and export and so on. Our joint ventures and obviously a complex web of supply chain partners and processes, not only does manufacture things like the ASA radar for Rafale, the electronic warfare suite for Rafale Spectra, and this started with making it for the Indian Air Force, but then we graduated it to making it for the world now. So proudly, some of the cutting edge technology that goes on to the Rafale, it is actually made here and exported, and that gets delivered to our customers worldwide. We also started doing research in India. So we are one of the major global conglomerates that actually moved in to do research in India. Thales, as some of you may know, we pioneer open hardware research, and a lot of that happens right here in our research and technology facility in Bangalore. Besides that, obviously we have developed, supply chain partnerships of over 77 different companies. One of our esteemed partners is right here on stage, who develop optronics for us, and Elfi, that's the name of the product that we are, looking and making it for worldwide use. So we've already demonstrated that it's not only just India for India, but India for the world. And our exports are touching over 2,000 crore per year, and growing in double-digit percentage points. So we have a significant presence, and going forward, the plan, in fact, extends to expanding this footprint a lot more beyond what we have currently.
Right. Mr. Gupta, coming back to you, this is a question that we touched upon earlier, but if we just look at the last 4 years and the kind of wars, conflicts that we have in fact seen, as he said, that emerging technology and innovating constantly, something that every firm has to keep up with, especially in the defense sector, what we have been seeing over the past few years. What lessons has MK drawn from it, and how are we adapting technology, if you talk about your firm, in these changing times?
Okay. So, as we all saw that Russia-Ukraine conflict, use of drones and firepower was very much prevalent. During this Israel-Hamas conflict, use of anti-drone was very much of the need. So things like those are there. And MK is also now today at the forefront of development of the electro-optics technology. Right now, very recently, we have developed sights for grenade launchers and heavy machine guns, which normally, traditionally, iron sights are being used, and the purpose that has to be done by grenade launchers is not being served without these kind of sights. And with these kind of sights, the targets or the mission can be accomplished very, very nicely. Another thing that my company has developed is first of its kind, a rifle protection helmet. So traditionally, the helmets are only for against handgun ammunitions. We launched it globally during Millipol in Paris last year, and that is getting a lot of traction, not only in India, but also in Western world, in Europe and in US. So we work on the, I would say, cutting edge technologies on the sectors that we are. However, still I would say that one thing that I would like to mention here is that, yes, Indian requirements are becoming so advanced and mature. They are also pushing the limits of the technology, and that is also helping the Indian companies and startups to develop new technologies.
Right. If you can elaborate on it's a Corva Doma helmet, right? If you can just elaborate on how it's unique, because I was discussing earlier today also with your colleague.
It's a Kavro Doma 360. Why 360? Because it gives all-around protection on 5 different zones that are critical for a soldier. And it's lightweight, and the back face deformation is quite low. So because of this, it makes it very unique in the world, and it's first of its kind helmet in the world today.
Right, and you've got clients, international clients already.
We are getting a lot of requests for such a helmets, and we are shipping all the samples to all over the world. Of course, first to the Indian Army.
Right, okay, great. Coming back to you, Captain Parashar, again touching upon the point that drones on the battlefields in Ukraine have in fact represented how, just by using a drone, they have been able to sink warships, which was absolutely unthinkable earlier. Now, how is it that a drone which is costing just a few dollars and is knocking out tanks which are much, much more valuable have, been made with cutting edge technology? Now, is legacy weapon system being replaced with, being almost rendered obsolete by these methods?
Well, I would not say that the legacy weapon systems are being absolutely rendered useless by these systems. It's the way the warfare dynamics are changing in today's time. Now, when we are looking at the warfare dynamics, and especially in these kind of asymmetric warfare, conventional warfare was completely different, where you had your tanks, you had your infantries going into the battle tanks, and you had the opposite way they were coming across to you. But where the warfare dynamics have changed today in these smart objects, which may cost few thousands of dollars, and you have $1 million tank therein, they're able to cover those areas in much more shorter distances without the person actually being there on the battlefield. So the person who is actually operating these platforms are sitting quite far away of a distance. So he's away from the harm's way. He's ready to take all the risk with the platform. So what happens at the end, the only thing what you're going to lose is just a drone, right? So the risk appetite is much more higher on the battlefield with these platforms compared to the tanks. So then a tank, which is a conventional warfare, becomes a sitting duck in front of these small cutting-edge technologies to come in. At the same time, where you have AI technology pushing into the boundaries of limits of war simulations coming in, the systems are starting to think on their own. So that means where a human's ability of a human to look across in a warfare domain scenario on a tactical system, the domain awareness is also increasing in. So his reach of combat management is getting much more higher compared to a conventional system. So that is exactly happening herein. So as you see the warfare coming in across, the anti-systems also will have to come into play in these tank systems coming in. And this is a discussion happening in the army right now. So if you see, there is an AOI which has come from an army where tanks now they want fitted with drones across. So that means tank can actually look something 4 and 5 kilometers ahead across and then counter these technologies which are there. So it's a thought process, it's a dynamics of how the war is happening and changing, and with time it's going to be get adapted in the combat system.
Right, so in terms of innovation, where do you think the focus needs to be when we need to counter such methods which are being used, which we have seen being successfully used by Ukraine? So where does the thrust of innovation need to be?
So the thrust of innovation, and if you look at the government policy also, which is there right now, they're looking at two places. One is 70% into the AI, that is non-kinematic, and 30% is into kinematic end. On the non-kinematic end is they're looking at combat management systems and battle management awareness systems, where they're putting a lot of impetus. In terms of kinetic, where the impetus is where your capex is also required, and we recently saw the Aditi scheme for deep tech and all that is being launched across by the government. They're looking at these drone solutions which can be loaded on these infantries and on warships, which can actually not make them look like a sitting duck and can act as an anti-drone system, or a combat, which can help them to get them combat ready with the new age technology advances which are happening in the battle management scenarios.
Mr. Saraf, if I can come back to you again. Now, what is Thales? Because the larger overview of our session today is about Atmanirbharta. How can we build a world-class indigenous defense industry right here? So what is Thales doing to support that?
Well, the short answer is bringing a lot of technology. But besides, obviously, Thales is part of pretty much, Thales is a tech company, and we go on every large platform that you can imagine. For example, warships to submarines to aircrafts and so on. And you already mentioned Mirage to Rafale on the air side, our journey. But the key is when the platforms operate, the systems and the subsystems and the technology that goes onto the platform, that's key. And that's exactly what we bring. I will give you an example, the radar that operates on the Rafale. It's one of the most cutting edge radars that, one can see across the world. Or the electronic warfare suite, the communication systems that go into the airplane that, air to air, ground to air, and so on. Similarly, from a technology perspective, we are also looking to bring in the short-range air defense systems as part of our partnership. Rockets, guided and unguided, that we are looking in to bring as part of a partnership that we are already looking to forge. Plus, on optronics, we already have technology that we co-developed with MKU. Our joint ventures manufacture and now will actually have backward integrated into engineering, etc. The technologies that go into Rafale as well as on the submarines, various submarines, and a specific example would be sonar. So there are many such technologies. Not only that, we have started to develop avionics at our engineering center, human-machine interface specifically pertaining to avionics. So these are some of the technologies that either we've already brought in or are in the process of establishing some sort of footprint in country to design and manufacture. Going forward, we would expand on this, and we have a line of technology-related line items that are poised to come into India. This plus on the innovation side, cybersecurity is one of the key areas that we work on, that we do right here in India, a majority of it. Cloud protection, because the new age warfare, it's also a lot of it is cyber, and protection of critical assets today, be it critical assets related to power plants, airports, or it could be satellite communication. All of them are vulnerable to cyber attacks, and that's exactly what we do. We protect all these assets from cyber, from a cyber standpoint, to make sure that their vulnerability is reduced, and the reliance on those that our forces and our systems have increases. So Thales has a long list of technologies that we already have and are ready to bring in, or are positioned to bring in, by nearly doubling our footprint in the coming 3 to 5 years.
Right. In fact, interesting that you touch upon that point, of course, because my next question to both of you, for that matter, is connected to that. Now, what seems to be a bigger hurdle? Is it for private firms, private defense firms in the country? Is it funding or sharing of core technology? Is that a challenge, or if at all, which one is the bigger one? First to you, Mr. Gupta.
If you are, my view would be more or less it's both. I would say funding is only for, I would say, more for startups and for MSMEs. But also, what I also feel is that India needs to invest more in core critical technologies of raw materials, composite materials, and stuff like that. And when it comes to making those projects viable, I don't think so it is viable without any government support. So funding of those kind of projects and technologies, government has to step in, then only we can do that. And today's geopolitical situation is that, God forbid, if there is some full-scale war, the countries do take sides, and then although we are developing a lot of in-house technologies for manufacturing of equipment, but what will happen in case the source of raw material is not available in India? So that is something I personally feel worried about. That's one thing. And you touched upon the technology, transfer of technologies, right? My personal feeling is that India will have to work on development of its own technologies, although we have examples like Thales and many others, but still there are many technologies that India will have to work upon to develop on its own for its own Atmanirbhar Bharat and being self-reliant.
And having the surprise element as well. Yeah. Captain Parashar?
Two things. I'm a startup. So
Yeah.
yes, funding certainly comes in because moment you go across to the venture capitalist and the ESG laws comes into play. And then that's very difficult for, especially for foreign funds to come in. Though government has, through the FDI limit, they have gone up to 75%, and under government route you can go up to 100% FDI. Parallelly, along with the funding, then comes the technology part. It is not technology in the sense what we are developing, but technology in sense of semiconductors. Technology in sense of having an ecosystem where you are designing a 16-layer PCB or a 64-layer PCB, and you could manufacture here in India itself. So that ecosystem is still not there. So to have a absolute Atmanirbhar Bharat in terms of self-reliance in defense ecosystem, our dependency has to be on our ecosystem. And the way the Silicon Fab Labs, where we are looking at, which is going to be set up in coming years and give us another 5 years down the line, that's where the real progress would start across. And from, where we have categories of IDDM, Make in India, Buy Global, and then, it's complete global coming in, you would really see the IDDM really kicking up. That is the time where your defense companies and startups will really show you the promising colors. So right now, the support which is there from the government through the different government routes and funding scheme is perfect. More and more as the investment size could go up, especially on the grant side, that could be much more better. And if that goes through 5 years down the line, I think we see a very bright future coming in. And if that support is important, and then this is going to give the thrust to the VCs and other investors also, that the government is very serious about it.
Right. Coming back to that point we were making earlier in terms of innovation, and as you were mentioning about developing technology which is for India, made in India. Now, what we have seen so far as drones, and we are coming back to you for drones because you specialize in that, but mostly what we have seen is that most drone systems which are incorporated are in a loop. But has machine learning or AI in any way change that or evolve to a point where drones can be deployed to attack targets of opportunity based on choices that they can make?
Absolutely. Samir is doing that already in terms of aviation platforms. We are doing this in terms of maritime platforms when we talk about maritime drones. I feel personally very proud to put across that, the Gulf of Aden, where all the piracy attacks are happening in right now, and we have our warships, we have drones which are built here completely out of India, are landing and taking off from our warships while they're on the move. So these technologies are there. There are startups here in country, I would like to name them, called Rafe out of Greater Noida. They are building these drones which actually are in a kamikaze mode, and they attack, they go and drops. So this is there. Now the most important part and the ethical dilemma comes in is the drone going to do it on its own, or it's the human in the loop which is going to do across? So this is a question which needs to be solved, and it is going to evolve over the period of time and how the conflict scenario changes. But yes, the technology is already there and systems are in. Our USVs carry a 12.7 mm gun with a short portable missiles also. So this is there in India, and you're going to see them in action very soon.
Right, good to know. In fact, a lot of people would probably come to know from what you just said. But coming to you, Mr. Saraf, now, how is, and this question is specific to you and unique to you because underlining Thales's presence in India is also the fact that there's a strong Indo-French strategic equation. One of the most important that France has with any country. Now, how does that tie in with the work that Thales is doing in the defense sector in the country?
Yeah, it's a perfect point you brought in, and a great follow-up to the previous one. What's important, funding or core technology, right? So this touches the core technology topic. The relationship between India and France is at its best right now. I mean, it was evident by the fact that Honorable Prime Minister Modi was invited to the French Bastille Day celebrations as a chief guest, and President Macron was a chief guest at our Republic Day celebrations. What has happened is that the two countries have created such conducive environment in defense in terms of exchange of defense collaboration, and that includes technology as a core or a prime component, that it allows companies like us to actually come in, establish and transfer and develop the technology here, further, because the support is there. As you know, defense is a very regulated sector. Every time you transact across borders, there has to be export licensing and the government approvals and so on and so forth. And same is true for import when we import something. But for us, it's been an absolute pleasure to kind of work in this environment where the two countries are so aligned geopolitically that it only enhances the collaboration that we do with our Indian partners. And that includes transfer of technology, investments in the defense segment, and then taking the technology here, absorbing, helping our partners absorb it, and developing that further to create new variations of this technology for the future that we can use not only for Indian market to supply to the forces, but also to export globally. So it's been an incredible way to exchange and develop this segment across both countries. I mean, it's not only just one way where things are coming in, but there's not been a better time for an Indian defense firm to go do business in France as well, because that kind of collaboration is also being promoted and fostered by the governments.
Right. And if we talk about success stories, Mr. Gupta, I would like to touch upon the fact that MKU is one of the biggest Indian defense exporters. So what is the key ingredient in terms of MKU's success story as far as exports are concerned?
I would say persuasion and persuasion and perseverance.
Right,
So
but
continued focus on exports way back in 2003, I would say. We invested a lot in building the brand. India, until very recent, nobody even thought of India exporting defense goods, and we had to face a lot of challenges. In order to overcome those, we even acquired a company in Germany. That was a big boost to our brand. So things like those, we exhibited in military exhibitions with a lot of good collaterals, etc. We put a brand, we put a lot of effort in our marketing. I think those things and constantly pursuing on those opportunities was something that brought us the success, yes.
right. Unfortunately, we'll have to close the session here. I'm being told we are completely out of time, but thank you to all of you for being part of this panel discussion and sharing your insights. Thank you so much. And let me hand back to Vedant, Vishnu. Vishnu, all right. Oh, okay.
Well, India's need to step up defense manufacturing comes at a time when China has just increased its defense budget by 7.2%. There are emerging threats in the South Asia region which directly impact India's national security. Frankly, that's why we're discussing all of this. When we look at our territorial interests, they extend to our airspace, our land frontiers, and our naval exclusive economic zones, our coastal boundaries. Atmanirbharta in defense has the potential of truly transforming our national defense landscape by providing our armed forces with world-class solutions for a complex series of requirements. It's been our honor and privilege to have all of you with us for our inaugural NDTV Defense Summit. We hope, in fact, we're pretty sure that this will be an ongoing conversation to talk about one of the most exciting sectors in the Indian economy and all that it offers. We'd like to thank our platinum partner, Adani Defense and Aerospace, our associate partner, Samtel, and our state partner, the government of Uttar Pradesh. And we'd like to thank you most of all. For now, we'd like to invite you all to join us for a cup of tea, please.